Hello, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Ryobi RY401110 40-volt brushless mower. So let's get started. Starting at the front of the mower, we have the two front wheels as well as the headlight, and the current favorite marketing word, brushless. Moving towards the rear of the mower, we have the height adjustment lever. We have the battery housing, which houses the battery as well as the spare battery slot, and the start key slot and the start key. And behind the battery housing, we have the lift handle, as well as 50 million do's and don'ts and safety warnings of things you shouldn't do that you probably will do that you probably shouldn't do, but you will do anyway, like I might have. Moving to the rear of the mower, we have the grass discharge port, which can either take the mulching plug or the grass bag. And underneath the mower, we have the cutting housing as well as the mower blade. Ryobi has two different blades on the market for this mower. One is used for general purpose mulching and bagging, and the other blade is used for bagging. At the time of this recording, both blades were running for about $20 each. Starting at the bottom of the mower handle, we have the handle adjustment knob. Moving up the handle, we have the handle locking lever. And at the top of the handle, we have the motor start button, as well as the bell. The bell is the thing that you hold against the handle to keep the motor running, and when you release it, it turns off the mower. And now here are some videos to show you how it looks and how it sounds in operation. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this mower. As you can probably tell from the clips I've played so far, I'm not really using this mower in the way it was probably designed or intended to be used. This mower was designed for mowing those lovely little suburban yards where the grass is about 2 inches tall and is always manicured and looks so pretty. That's not our yard. Our yard is full of native grasses and native plants, and non-native plants that I want to mow into oblivion. Thus, why I got this mower. Now, we have a riding lawnmower to do most of the yard, and that works great for the majority of the yard. However, there are spots in our yard that you just can't get a riding lawnmower into, and so we needed something a little bit smaller and a little bit more lightweight in order to get into some of these areas. In the past, we used gas push mowers, and they work great, except for one little thing. They're an absolute pain to get started. Thus, why we started looking at electric mowers. Now, the electric mowers, they've been around a few years at this point, and a lot of people really enjoy and use them, but the majority of people who have them seem to have smaller suburban yards that don't need a whole lot of extra power, and so we weren't too sure this would be a great fit for us. And quite frankly, I was pretty skeptical about the amount of power that one could produce, but we figured we'd give it a try and just see how well it would do, and I have to say, at first, I really wasn't impressed at all. When I first started using this mower, I didn't take it immediately to the deepest, heaviest, thickest grass in our yard because I just assumed it wouldn't be able to handle any of that whatsoever and it would just turn off automatically. So I took it to a part of the yard that had some shorter grass that just was a little bit uneven and it was in a hard place for the riding lawnmower to get, and so I tried cutting the grass there, and it did an okay job, but it was leaving uneven areas and I'd have to make multiple passes, and so I was kind of unhappy with it. And so I was thinking, oh, this isn't a keeper, I'll just get rid of it and we'll just go back to gas. But I decided to maybe give it another chance, and I took it to a part of the yard that had the thicker, taller, more jungle-like grass in it, and it actually did a fairly decent job. Don't get me wrong, there were still moments where you'd have to back up or go over an area multiple times, or the motor you'd think it'd turn off and it was still on, you'd back up and it would start up again, and so it was a little unconcerting, but it was actually doing a fairly decent job. But I was still having to make the multiple passes. Now, up to this point, I had been using this in the mulching mode, not the bagged mode. And so I had the mulching plug in, and it was just mulching the grass. And honestly, I don't really think the 40-volt system is powerful enough to mulch everything that I need it to mulch personally. So at this point I was getting pretty discouraged, and I was honestly at the point of just saying send it back. So I decided to throw the bag on just to see how it would work with that. And boy, does it work a whole heck of a lot better with the bag on there. I was able to go through most of the grass that I need to go through with a single pass, and it would do a pretty even job most of the time. And the times that I did miss something, I think it had more to do with the fact of how long the grass was, that it just got bent down and so it never touched the blade to begin with. And honestly, I'm actually very, very happy with how well this mower is working at this point. The 6 amp hour 40-volt battery that this mower comes with, if you choose to purchase it in that form, gives me about 35 to 40 minutes of runtime, and honestly, that's enough to get the majority of the touch-up work done that I need to get done with. If there is any straggling pieces and I've run out of battery life, I mean, well, my other 40-volt batteries will fit in there and I can finish it up fairly quickly. So overall, I've actually become fairly impressed by this little mower, even though the first impression wasn't all that great. Now, there's still a few things about this mower I'm not a very big fan of. One of them is the battery compartment. Now, the battery compartment's cover is made out of a translucent dark plastic, which acts kind of like a greenhouse, and so it will heat up the compartment fairly quickly if you're working in sunlight, and it will make your batteries heat up quicker because there really is no ventilation for the batteries. I think if they had made the cover out of an opaque plastic and it had ventilation holes, it would have been a much better design. There really is no point in having a translucent cover because honestly you can't tell what your battery level's at without touching the battery, so there's really no point in having a translucent cover. Furthermore, about the battery compartment, the cover is kind of on a weird hinge system where you can't keep it in an open position. It always wants to be in the closed position. It's kind of a weird tension system. I don't know how to describe it all that well, but it works great if you're in a bumpy environment on keeping the cover closed, but you're still going to get dust and other debris in there, and the way it's designed makes it kind of difficult to clean in there effectively. Now, there is the battery slot to power the mower in the battery compartment, as well as an extra storage area to store another battery on the mower itself. You have to still switch it out manually though when the first battery depletes. It's not an automatic switching system or anything. And the last thing that's inside the battery compartment is the power safety key, whatever you want to call it. In my opinion, it really is kind of pointless, and it probably has something to do with some government regulation somewhere. It's just one of those things where you're always going to leave it in there. You're never going to take it out. You're never going to mess with it. It's just there. And honestly, it's just another piece to lose if you do take it out. Overall, I think they probably didn't really need it, but there's probably a regulation somewhere that says they have to include it, so whatever. Overall, none of these are really that big of negatives, and they don't really impact the performance of the mower all that much. And if you're working in a shady environment or anything, the battery compartment isn't a big deal. Where it would become a bigger deal is if you're constantly in the sunlight all the time, and even then it's not going to stop you or really deplete your runtime by that much. It's just more of a wish it would have been a better design, but it doesn't really matter kind of thing. The mower height can be adjusted anywhere from 1.5 inches up to 4 inches. I usually left mine at about 3.5 inches. This mower does not have any sort of self-propulsion feature and is strictly a push mower. This works great for me. If you're interested in one that has a self-propelling features, if you're older or if you have a disability, this probably is not a good one for you. They do have a more expensive version of this. I think it's about $100 more that does have the self-propelling feature. But for me personally, this works great. Build-wise, this mower is primarily made out of plastic. This is a good thing and it's a bad thing. It's good because being plastic makes it lighter, easier to push, easier to maneuver, and just overall easier to use and easier to store. And it'll also be easier to clean and less chance of there being corrosion. So those are a few of the good things going for it. And some of the things that's against it is if it suffers any sort of heavy impact. There's a lot of durable, flexible plastics out there, but plastic is also known to shatter fairly easily, especially if the plastic has been exposed to sunlight or UV radiation. Because of this, if you leave this mower in any sort of environment where it is constantly exposed to sun, eventually that plastic is going to get hard and brittle, and when your blades kick something up and into the top of the housing, it's probably going to shatter or crack or cause some sort of structural damage. So there's pros and cons on both sides. Being brand new, I really wouldn't worry too much about it breaking or shattering. It's more along the lines of maybe a year or two down the road, and if you leave this anywhere where it is exposed to constant UV radiation or heat that might warp the plastic. But as long as you store it in a nice environment and you take care of it, it shouldn't really be that big of an issue. Now the blades on these are very lightweight compared to, say, an old gas mower blade. And there's a reason for that. Because it's an electric motor, it's going to need to have something a little bit lighter and a little bit easier for the motor to spin and rotate. And honestly, it's not really that big of a deal, but you'll probably go through blades quicker than you would, say, with an older, more powerful motor, especially if you're working in any sort of environment where you have the risk of rocks, branches, wood, or anything else that might ding up a blade. So just keep that in mind, that the blades are not the most robust, but that's to be expected with a 40-volt lawnmower. One more thing to keep in mind about these Ryobi lawnmowers, and I'm not sure if other brands have this issue too, but I do know for a fact that the Ryobis have this issue. And I know it was more prevalent on the previous generation, but on the newer generation it can still be an issue. The switches that keep the motor from turning off over time will become misaligned and prevent the mower from starting, or it will operate for a few seconds and then turn off. If this is the case, you'll probably need to either return to the store or contact Ryobi for an authorized service center. I would highly recommend just using the mower a ton when you first get, just to make sure that you don't have this issue. And if you do have this issue, return it immediately and get either a refund or a replacement, because it's not really something that you can fix yourself all that well. You can do it, but it's going to require a lot of work, and it's on something when it's brand new, you really don't want to do that. And like I said, it's not as common with these newer mowers, but it can still happen, so just be aware. Now, like I said before, I do believe that this mower operates far better when you have the bag installed and not the plug. Now, the bag is not the best bag in the world. It's not the worst either. It's about middle of the road, which is typical for Ryobi. I wish it was a little bit bigger, but overall, size-wise, it's not bad at all. And if you're mowing grass in a typical suburban yard, it'll be plenty big for getting the job done. And it worked fairly well for me. There was just one little thing that it didn't do as well as I was hoping. So the only real problem I had with the bag was with a certain kind of grass. It's known by a few of its different aliases, like Satan's grass, the grass from the abyss, nature's tracking device, destroyer of worlds, grass of despair, and the Zodiac sock murderer. And the #1 reason why people burn down their own yards, aka cheatgrass. So the bag wasn't super resistant to these and they would get stuck in the fabric, but the bag will still hold them and I can still transport them to the proper designated disposal area, Mount Doom, where I can toss them in and watch them burn into ashes in the fiery pit. And I promise I wasn't laughing maniacally when I was doing this. I totally was. Sorry, if I want to keep this video under 15 minutes long, I'm going to have to skip the pros and cons section today. Overall, I really did enjoy using this mower. At first, I really didn't like it, but as time went on, I did learn its quirks, and I really did start to enjoy using it. I think I'm never going to use it again with the plug, because honestly, it works way better when you're using the bag. If there had been a side ejection port for the grass clippings, it probably would have been just as good, but there isn't, so the bag is really the only way to use this mower. The only other issue I really didn't like about this mower was the greenhouse battery compartment. Like I said, I think it retains way too much heat, and it allows the batteries to get too warm. Yes, the batteries are going to get warm from operational use, but at the same time, having the sunlight hitting them and in an enclosed environment isn't good either for getting rid of heat. But that is a fixable problem, and I'm just going to throw some nice foil tape on there, and that should fix the majority of the complaints I have about the greenhouse compartment. So as long as you don't get a lemon that has the issue with the safety switches turning the mower off, I would definitely recommend this mower, especially if you've been using a gas mower and you're just sick and tired trying to get the stupid thing to start after a long winter, even if you've done the preventive maintenance and everything you're supposed to. So I would recommend this mower, especially if you're looking to bag up Satan's grass. Oh, how I hate that stupid grass. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and have a great day.